Australia is home to thousands of native species, many of which are endemic to the continent. However, many of these species are threatened by anthropogenic forces. To combat the loss of native populations, recovery plans have been put forward as a tool to aid in conservation. Recovery plans are documents made using published data and expert opinions that set out goals for the conservation of threatened species. They lay out recovery actions, threats, information about populations, and criteria for success. According to several Australian studies, there is no correlation between number of undertaken recovery actions and species recovery. A study by Batril et al. Found no significant difference between changes in status between species with a recovery plan and those without. But several American studies have found a positive correlation between having a recovery plan, particularly dedicated plans, and successful recovery outcomes. One of the main issues with recovery plans is that they don't obligate any sort of funding or actions. They are often underfunded, and a study found that only 2% of plans in the US had achieved over 75% of their recovery objectives. Taylor et al. Also found that multi-species recovery plans are less effective than dedicated single-species plans are in general. This is an issue, as multi-species recovery plans have become more and more common since the early 2000s. The success of recovery plans in the United States has shown that they are a viable and useful tool in the fight to protect threatened species. However, studies based on Australian recovery plans have not shown that having one leads to an increase in the success of species recovery. The Australian recovery planning system should then be adjusted to emulate the successes seen in the United States. Experts have recommended a few methods to improve the success of recovery planning. Studies have shown that increased funding leads to better conservation outcomes, allowing conservationists to conduct more recovery actions and to a higher quality. Improving the quality of plans is also important. According to Watson et al., the plans that showed the highest rates of success had a high proportion of actions that were implemented and specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound objectives. Westwood et al. Have suggested using a framework to standardize recovery plan writing. Ultimately, recovery planning in Australia has not shown the same levels of success seen in the United States, and much of the inconsistency can be attributed to poorly written plans and a lack of funding. But well-written plans have been shown to have a positive effect on recovery and can be an important tool in preventing extinctions in Australia.